podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
International football is rubbish. It's been scientifically proven, has it not?
Yeah, except for during major international tournaments where there wouldn't be football on otherwise, when it is brilliant.
Yeah, and if you don't believe my thesis about international football being rubbish, just check out England versus Ukraine. Rubbish.
Oh, it did not live up to the last England versus Ukraine, which was one of the highlights of the Euro 2012 tournament. England versus Ukraine was a truly dismal affair, and what Roy Hodgson is doing, thinking that Lampard and... I cannot believe I'm saying this. I can't believe I'm talking about an England manager in 2012 playing Lampard and Gerrard together. It's just unbelievable.
Well, we'll get into International Week, shall we? But quick review of the Southampton game. I know it seems like donkeys years ago, doesn't it? Because, well, it is, really. But an amazing game.
I was thinking about this. I have no interest whatsoever in doing a quick review of the Southampton game. Even though it was a long time ago, I think we should give it the full Rantcast treatment, because we obviously didn't talk about it last week because of the international break. But what an extraordinary game that was. Attlee's Worsley, very timely with the return of the thick of it to our television screen, describing our midfield and defence as an omnishambles. What did you make of it, Ed?
Yeah, well, I thought the left hand wasn't talking to the right hand, basically. So midfield was giving no protection to the back four at all. Back four was weakened with injuries and other disruptions and all that kind of stuff. Odd goalkeeper change. And going forward, okay, United scored the goals. You'd kind of expect that against a newly promoted side. Eventually scored the goals, should I say. But yeah, right at the back, terrible. Through midfield, no protection whatsoever. The shape was just completely wrong. And Southampton looked like they could pick United off at will almost. I mean, they didn't quite manage to do it, and it's not as if they were playing long balls. They were just playing sensible football on the break through midfield, and Southampton didn't have very much of the ball because United monopolised possession, but they could have done a lot of damage, and talk about get out of jail free card again this season.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to talk about that comeback because it was a heck of a thing. A one-man team rang the cry from other fans. Yes, said Man United fans, Paul Scholes is indeed a one-man team. Robin van Persie managed to get himself a hat-trick after taking one of the least appropriate penalties I've ever seen in my life. A terrible penalty and just shocking decision-making at 2-1 down.
Oh, really terrible. Now, he said, I don't know what happened. I know what happened. His ego got the better of him. So, I mean, he'll have learnt a very big lesson from that one. And I suppose if you're going to fluff a penalty quite like that, scoring a hat-trick is one way to get round it. I would hope he'd get an earful for that one too. Imagine that was Champions League final last minute and all of that kind of stuff. But yet made up for it with almost the perfect hat-trick, you know. Not quite left foot, right foot header, but fine all-round hat-trick. But at the top of that, you said Paul Scholes, who completely changed the game, didn't he? He came on, and Southampton did what all sides should not do against Paul Scholes, and they stood off him and gave him so much space it was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was really just the classic mistake, wasn't it? And you kind of can't believe that sides are still doing that, but they are. And he came on after about 70 minutes, was it? Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And then the game was just completely different because everything he did made us look more dangerous and more effective.
From his first touch, he played a through ball that completely turned around the Southampton defence. It didn't lead to a goal, but took about 5 seconds for Paul Scholes to plant his quality on the game. Interesting quote from Nick Powell this week. He said, the most difficult thing about coming to United is the fact that he's been chasing Paul Scholes' shadow for the last 4 months. So I guess that gives us some mindset. Even when you're trying to get the ball off him, it's difficult. But Southampton players weren't within 10 yards of him. They basically paid him way too much respect, and he completely turned the game around for United. And Van Persie does what Van Persie seemingly does best, and that's put the ball in the net.
Worth pointing out that winning goal came direct from a nanny corner. That's not something we all thought we'd be hearing said for a little while.
No, United have turned into Stoke with set-piece masters or something like that.
But it was wonderful. I mean, Robin van Persie playing like a man in terrified fear of the hairdryer after that penalty. And his hat-trick was fantastic. That third goal was just brilliant technique to get the header to work like that from an excellent corner from Nani. And lovely stuff. But, the overall performance from United was absolutely dreadful. And we had a question, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was from, we had a question about whether the performance of Van Persie made the result flattering to United when actually there's terrible defensive problems there. I kind of think in some ways it's more like actually those defensive problems are not going to last because Rio always takes a long time to get back from fitness. Vidic is still not fully fit yet. Rio by the second half was already looking a little bit brighter, a little bit better. So I kind of feel like that's not going to be such a problem for such a long time. But potentially one of the reasons for some of that defensive confusion, although it's hard to lay it on this door, but we can't talk about that game without talking about it. Fergie, what's he doing with David De Gea?
I'll get onto that. One quick point though. I don't think you can compartmentalise a football side, right? So I don't think you can say that United defended badly, therefore it's the back four's fault, and then say, well, we've got a lot of injuries and disruptions. Of course that plays into it. But I think just the structure of United's side against Southampton was really bad. There were times when United was piling forward with 6 or sometimes 7 players, and it was like United was chasing an FA Cup tie, with 3 minutes into injury time and that kind of thing. And that was in the first half, right? It was insane how open United was. And I've got to say, I hope, for the sake of United playing good football and attacking football and the United football we all want to see, that there isn't a spanking sometime down the road and we regress into playing slightly more negative football. That's what happened last season, right? So there's that fear at the back of my mind, and that fear at the back of my mind is real because United are playing a way too open system. It's just all wrong, and I've got to say that's not really the back four per se. That is a structural thing, and I hope they get it right. And they've had the international break. A lot of players went off and played, some didn't, and let's hope by the time United play Wigan at the weekend that they've sorted some of that out, because I think come some of the better games, and we've got Liverpool coming up in a couple of weeks, but that's a nice warm up for some of the better games. It will be a real problem for United if the team as a whole defends like that. On De Gea, didn't understand it at all. Didn't make any sense to me. I thought he's been in good form this season. Yes, he made a mistake against Fulham, but one where he was fouled by the forward and his own man, and you've got to say I thought that was pretty harsh. I think I said on the last pod I thought it was about 25% De Gea's fault. If he's going to be dropped for that, that's stunning. And Lindegaard didn't do anything hugely wrong in the game, although his distribution is nowhere near as good as De Gea's, and I've got to say this is really worrying, because one of the other things that Ferguson said was that De Gea will be back for the Wigan game or something to that effect, right? So what are we going to have, a situation where we're rotating goalkeepers, and that produces a cold sweat, I think, because it reminds me of times when Carroll and Howard were rotating. Of course, De Gea and Lindegaard are better keepers, both of them better than Howard and Carroll, but it's still, I can't imagine this is a good thing.
I mean, I was sort of horrified by it, really. I mean, first of all, by the decision, which seemed, it genuinely seemed like a completely bizarre decision. But by the public commentary of it, so un-Fergie-like in the old days to say in public that he was kind of punishing a player for making a mistake. That's the thing about Fergie. He doesn't slag off his players in the press, right? But to do it, I don't know, unless for some reason he thought De Gea needed bringing down a peg or two, which seems very odd man management given what his confidence has looked like. Yeah, just seemed a really strange one to me.
One of a couple of strange decisions, the other being how United played during the game. So a few mistakes there, got away with it, and some brilliant goals from Van Persie to help United get away with it. So I guess this is a very long-winded way of answering that question. Did the score or did the result flatter United? And in a way it did, because it could have gone horribly wrong. It didn't, but it could have.
So what's wrong with the structure and what needs to happen to fix it then, Ed?
Look, you had 2 players who played, none of which covered. So Carrick had a poor game by his standards, and I think we've said many times we're both Carrick fans, and then Cleverley was the, in theory, the more attacking of the players, and neither of them played tight enough together, didn't play deep enough at times, and didn't link the defence and the midfield, and it just didn't seem very joined up, and then you've got the problem in the wide areas where we didn't get support in wide areas either, and it caused United a bit of a problem with the fullbacks. So I mean, there's a lot of things there. You could probably point to 5 different things. Some of it is personnel though, because what you'd really wanted to have done in that game is brought on someone who would sit and press and win the ball back. And I'm not saying that United need to have a player who kicks someone all the time. In some games it would really help, right? And the balance of the squad isn't quite right. And it's something United is just going to have to deal with. If Carrick is out at any stage this season, it's going to be even worse because there's no other player in the United squad that's going to do that job. And you know, that's even taking into account that Darren Fletcher may come back. I mean, I think he's probably still a long way off, but he may do. And he is like a combative, energetic player, is an all-rounder. He's not the kind of player who's going to sit there and win a tactical game in midfield.
It's very interesting, the Carrick point, because I watched the game and thought he's having a poor game here. His attacking stats, his stats in possession are stunning. You know, 115 passes of 126 attempted, so 91% pass completion. I mean, those are Xavi-esque stats, they really are.
But it's United all over this season. But when Southampton were breaking, they went straight through United's midfield, and they weren't playing it long.
No, that's what I was gonna go on to say. That Carrick had a poor game because he had nowhere near his usual defensive stats, which is like loads of interceptions and, you know, not so much tackles, but certainly blocks and interceptions. He's always kind of got big numbers in that. But the fact that he hasn't got numbers in that in this game, and his attacking statistics were so good, really does make you think, yeah, he just wasn't doing that job defensively. And you can only think that's probably because he hasn't been assigned to do that job defensively in the same way.
I mean, one of the things about defending, of course, is much harder to analyse through statistics. How do you quantify good positioning? And how do you quantify good positioning across multiple variables, i.e. multiple players? It's very, very difficult. And that's one of those subjective things that you can't prove or disprove, I think. And I just think, subjectively, United defended very poorly through midfield.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. And you know, that's not massive shock when you look at the personnel, because if you count Kagawa, then that's a midfield of Cleverley, Carrick and Kagawa. And Kagawa's going forward the whole time. He's not really there to be a defensive midfielder.
Although he played way deeper than in his previous two games, right? Way deeper. I mean, he basically played as a midfielder, which blunted some of his attacking instincts, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. But certainly, you know, none of his instincts are to be that kind of deep-lying midfielder.
No, right.
And, you know, Cleverley, again, a pretty effective game going forward. 50 of 53 passes completed. You know, you really cannot complain about that. Only 13 of those in the attacking third, though. So again, Cleverley playing very deep and not doing much defensive work. Yeah, Carrick and Cleverley a very good combination when you want to keep the ball, but not necessarily such a good combination when you're trying to defend. So I just want to ask you one more thing about the De Gea situation. I mean, how serious does that? How serious do you worry about that? I mean, do you really think Fergie's going to actually properly mess about with rotation, or this will be a bit of a warning shot across De Gea's bows and he won't mess about for the rest of the season?
Warning shot for what, though? That's what I couldn't figure out. So no, I think it's a rotation thing, and we'll of course we'll find out, right? This is one of those things we'll definitely find out. And I had to say I had assumed that since De Gea started the season, he would probably play 75 to 80% of games, and Lindegaard would come in if there was an injury or a massive loss of form and play some of the games in Europe and the cup competitions and that kind of stuff. Maybe that's not going to be the case. Maybe we'll have more closer to 50-50. My two concerns are, one, will we get to a situation where we screw with De Gea's head and all that confidence that he'd gained from sort of February onwards is lost? And wouldn't that be a massive shame, because we've got a hugely talented goalkeeper there, hugely talented, and if he's that goalkeeper that played from February to the end of the season, we've got one of the best keepers in the Premier League already, and he's 22 or something, right? So why mess with that? And why take that risk? And then the second concern really is kind of related to that, because if Lindegaard plays more often, I just don't think he's as good. I don't think he's a bad keeper by any means, but I don't think he's as good. Would he have, for example, made the save that De Gea did at Stamford Bridge to pluck that, you know, top corner bound free kick out of the air? I'm not sure that he would. Will he be able to set up attacks in the same way? Will he make a mistake with his feet at some point and give the ball away, and it creates a chance for the opposition to attack when they wouldn't have done otherwise? All these things kind of factor into it. He's not a bad keeper. He's a very good keeper, in fact, but I don't think he has anywhere near the potential to be of De Gea's class. Just my opinion, of course, but I guess those two things worry me.
Well, the Lindegaard question, it's kind of the question I used to ask about John O'Shea to random people, which is what level of side would Lindegaard be a definite first choice selection for? Is it their kind of Champions League United and Arsenal and City and Chelsea, or is it UEFA Cup chasing sides, or is it relegation battlers or comfortable mid-table sides like Liverpool? What's Lindegaard's natural level? And it doesn't leap out at you that he's a Champions League quality goalkeeper in the way that De Gea does.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I thought basically he was brought in as a backup. And United, I guess United had a plan all along to get De Gea. When we talked about it at the time, I said it might help us assess United's level of ambition in the transfer market. Terrible word at the time, but we're talking 2 summers ago. It's good that United brought in the 2 keepers. It's bad if we end up messing with them because of some rotation policy. But hey, who are we to question Fergie? Maybe he's got a plan for this one and he'll get it right and he won't screw with them. But it's just a worry, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Van Persie, well on his way to cult status at Manchester United with a turnaround like that. Grumpy manager making intractable decisions with his goalkeepers and defenders and relying on Robin van Persie for all our goals. It's a slightly worrying signs that we might be turning into Arsenal there, but hopefully we're not, and Van Persie's lovely hat-trick will be the start of things to come, but not immediately because, as Arsenal fans will know only too well, there was an international break and, of course, Van Persie's come back injured.
Well, it seems like it's not too bad, and he was taken off as a precaution. It's something like a dead leg, something like that, not a muscle problem. So I was using Google Translate furiously, like I suspect many United fans, to try and find some accurate information on some Dutch websites. I was reading the minute-by-minute blogs on one of the Dutch sports sites in order to work it out, and they were saying muscle injury, but it doesn't look like it is, which is very good news. Unfortunately, it looks like Shinji Kagawa has come back with a back injury, although he said today it's not too serious, so we'll find out whether he's okay for the weekend. So he played against the UAE but missed the game with Iraq. Van Persie played in 2 games for Holland against Turkey and scored, and against Hungary and was pulled off at half-time. Nani played against Azerbaijan but missed a game before that, so it looks like he's all right as well. And Evra actually played twice for France this week, which is a surprise because it seemed like Gaël Clichy had taken the number 1 spot, but Evra has deposed the City player and played against Finland and Belarus. And so, quite a lot of players playing this week for United away on international duty.
Yeah, and of course, Michael Carrick back in the England setup, but not in the England team because no way to end that sentence.
Came on as a sub, didn't he, against Moldova, but didn't play against Ukraine. And I mean, obviously, Lampard and Gerrard has been the finest international midfield pairing of any country over the last 10 years. Obviously, because England's won all these... No, wait a minute. No, England hasn't. No, yeah, can't work it out either.
It's not quite as depressing as the England band, but it's pretty close. The game against Ukraine, Welbs came on and really turned that round. He should have scored, though. And T-Klevs with a miss for the ages.
T-Klevs didn't have his shooting boots on. Interesting one, because he actually had a decent game, I thought. He was involved in everything. He had a very good game against Moldova. I thought he had a decent game, as good as anyone in the midfield against Ukraine, but his shooting boots were definitely not on. I mean, he got in the positions, didn't he? So hit the post with one at the near post and missed from about 3 yards out. And one paper ranked him as a 4 out of 10. And then the comment underneath made me laugh. Was largely responsible for England's disappointing performance. I was like, no, ridiculous. And I mentioned on Twitter last night that maybe England fans have got a new scapegoat, and I just left that as an open question. Maybe. I thought he had a bit of bad luck. If he'd scored that goal, he'd have got a goal in an England win, and everyone would be saying it was a pretty decent performance again, and we'd be lauding him, as was the case against Moldova on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth pointing out, though, that miss from when Defoe set him up is one of the worst misses of all time. I think probably he was surprised that Defoe had put the ball across to him. But he just, really did pass it into... He just used his foot to put the ball in the one single place where it wouldn't be a goal kind of thing.
Yeah, the goalkeeper was in a deck chair on the post having a fag, and cleverly had about 87 yards worth of goal to fire at and managed to pass it back to the goalkeeper.
It's a fascinating season for T-Klebs, but it's a good job that he got through the international break without getting injured, because we really need him, don't we, especially with Kagawa out.
Well, yeah, we do. Anderson seems completely out of favour, and we'll see whether Kagawa is actually injured or not, and there aren't an awful lot of options in central midfield. The contrast's interesting, isn't it, because he plays sort of in a midfield 2, I suppose, for United with Kagawa ahead, and he's been playing in Kagawa's position for England and done very well. Different player in that position, but he also played at number 10 for Great Britain through the Olympic tournament as well. So he can certainly do it. I thought sometimes actually against Ukraine he was too far forward and he ended up playing with his back to goal, and that's definitely not Cleverley's position.
No, absolutely. I think probably since we last spoke we found out the extent of how bad Rooney's injury was as well. He's out for a good while with that serious cut, isn't he? He's going to be a few months, and he said it was millimetres away from ending his career.
Yeah, well, not a few months, few weeks. He didn't say that, actually. He said millimetres away from an artery. That doesn't mean the end of a career. They'd have had to stitch the artery up and maybe there'd have been a bit more blood. But I think the Daily Mail was taking some liberties with that headline. At no point did anyone say his career would have been definitely over if it had severed that artery. I mean, he might have died on the pitch, I suppose. So, yes, the career would definitely be over. But John O'Shea got enough games and he was barely alive.
Harsh. Very, very, very harsh. Good old Shazy. So, the Fresh Prince of Longsight came on and changed the game for England. He did miss that one chance, but he won the penalty and just made England look much more interesting, basically, because he's that sort of player. He's a player he just makes teams look good. It's nice to watch Danny Welbeck.
He makes stuff happen, doesn't he, Welbeck? He really does, and yeah, his finishing is not always brilliant. He should have scored, hit the post, but there's definitely stuff happening around him. Took a bit of a dive, thought. Just, putting it out there, he took a little bit of a dive, maybe taking a few lessons off Ashley Young there, and definitely not a penalty. That one won the second one fair and square.
A bit of a dive is very generous. That was Greg Louganis-esque, or I guess for our younger listeners, Tom Daly-esque. Isn't it sad that Greg Louganis is no longer the world's go-to diver reference? So, what else do we need to say about the international break? It's the stupidest of all international breaks. The season's just getting up and running, you're all starting to get back into football, and then everything stops, the wheels come off. The stupid, terrible, unbelievably bad England band polish their instruments and head out for a night on the town playing nationalistic nonsense.
Terrible, and there was a lot of hate on Twitter. Rightly so. I'm not one for hate all the time, but where it's justified, and I think the England band is justified. One thing I've got to say, Robbie Brady made his debut for Ireland and scored against, I think they played Oman at Craven Cottage, random selection for a friendly there and venue, but well done, Robbie Brady.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, that, isn't it, when you get these youngsters that get selected for their national side.
Joshua King as well, play for Norway. So there you go, another youngster playing for his country and United reserves, or under 21 side, we should say these days.
Could you explain that to me, because I don't understand what's going on.
So basically the reserve side was basically an under 21 side anyway. Most clubs were playing youngsters, and so they've just rejigged the rules a little bit and the youth set up throughout the country. So it's now under 21 sides, although there's license to play a set number of overage players, which United have done on quite a few occasions. Fletcher and Boutner have played recently, and then the academy sides become an under 18 side, which effectively they were anyway. So it's not massive radical change or anything, but it's a nationwide restructuring of all comes from this elite performance development plan, where they looked at the whole structure of youth football, and that's part of that process, not exactly the same plan, but part of that process.
Interesting stuff. So, whilst the international break was on, Rooney took the chance to grab some headlines to sell a few copies of his incredibly well-written autobiography. Not his first autobiography at the age of 20 whatever he is, but it's the second volume of the Rooney memoirs.
Stunning stuff, yeah. It's written in one of these weird tenses that's the present tense but talking about the past, and sometimes in the same sentence there are two and sometimes three tenses in one sentence. I have to say, it's shockingly written, and it was actually written by a professional ghostwriter as well, we are led to believe. So weird, this one though. Got to me a little bit. I mean, I know players have contractual commitments to go and flog their wares and all of that, so he did a whole round of media interviews, and of course he was going to be asked about the contract and Rooney Gate or October Gate or whatever we're calling it, and where he said United had no ambition, and of course he was going to give a stock answer, which is I want to stay and play for this club and it was a terrible mistake and all of that. But I have to say I find it difficult to believe Rooney's contrition and his sort of semi-apology and his promises of wanting to stay at United for life when he's flogging a book. I can't square the two things.
Yeah, it's a very odd one, and we're just all communally Rooney basically acting like Rooney's lying when he says he wants to stay at the club forever now. That's just the kind of default assumption, is that that's not true. He doesn't have any particularly strong affection for the club. I mean, he probably has some relationship with the club because he's been there such a long time, but it's not like some sort of eternal lifelong bond which was temporarily slightly fractured but really then forged back in the fires of love and passion and all that kind of stuff, and he'll be at United forever. Well, yes, quite.
Could we expect any more, really? I mean, he left his boyhood club once the first big opportunity came along, so it's no surprise, and it's well known. It's well known now that he was flirting with moving to Manchester City, and if United hadn't come up with a big pay offer, he may well have pushed that one through. So the rest of it I just find a bit disingenuous, basically, and as long as he scores the goals, gets himself fit and stops smoking and drinking and coming back from pre-season 7 pounds overweight or whatever it was, then that's fine. You know, he's a United player, and as long as we frame it all within the parameters of it's a business for him, he's not a fan, then we'll all be all right and we won't get too irate about it.
Yeah, absolutely. That seems very reasonable. Not too much super interesting in the excerpts that were published in the papers. A fight with Roy Keane over the television remote control when X Factor was on and Keano wanted to watch the rugby, and don't think I can remember anything else, really.
It's not very interesting. So yeah, he comes back from the summer overweight. He made a terrible mistake. He gets on with, there's some stuff about England and getting on with Ashley Cole and whatever. Yeah, so boring. It's unbelievably boring. Another drama, and an ex-United player, Ronaldo. Apparently he's terribly depressed. Poor Ronaldo, because he only earns 12 million euros a year.
Well, this is a rather odd story, this, because there's been a lot of talk that he's somehow sad because of his financial state at the club. But didn't this all happen on the anniversary of his father's death?
Yeah, but he said it's professional.
Yeah, but, I mean, the talk is that he had asked for a moment's silence for his father before the match and had been turned down, which is understandable because it's, an odd personal-professional crossover. So, I don't know, it just seems like weird timing. Even if it is somehow just a professional matter, it's definitely going to be influenced by the fact that he lost his father at such a young age in such a horrible way. That's bound to leave its scars, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe. I have to say he said it's not that and it's a professional matter, and I suspect it's Ronaldo's ego being stroked and needing to be stroked, and of course I'm guessing, like everyone else really, because he won't fill in the blanks and likes to leave it somewhat cryptic, but I don't think he doesn't need more money, but he's not even nearly the best paid player on the planet. I don't think he's even in top 10 now because of all these players who head off to China and the Middle East and Russia and so on. So for the player who's probably the second best player in the world, he's not being paid in accordance to that, and that's probably irking him. That's just a guess. But I thought it was interesting that immediately after that, the piece in the paper saying Ferguson has told the Glazers that he must bring Ronaldo back at any cost. And I was like, at any cost? Geez, do the sums on this one, and it's astronomical, even if you suppose that United could monetize it commercially in some way.
It's Glazer-nomical. Yeah, I mean, talking about monetising it commercially, can you imagine, given the commerciality of the Van Persie signing, how sickeningly often you would be emailed with just pictures of Ronaldo smiling at you in a United shirt if he came home? He's not going to come back, is he?
No, they can't do it. I mean, so one of the other problems in Spain is they changed the tax laws, right? So the Beckham law is no longer in effect for new contracts. It's grandfathered in for current contracts. So Ronaldo is paying at most about 23% tax, and it's probably a lot less because of tax avoidance schemes and offshore accounts and all of that. So you'd put it at about 9 and a bit million euros net if he was paying the full whack of tax. It's probably only pays about $1.5 million euros tax. So turn that over to England and the aggregate tax, which will be 50 and a bit for the higher rate payers, and United would have to be paying up 250,000 and more gross a week, just as his basic salary, plus then the image rights and the bonuses and so on. So it's significantly ahead of anything else United pay. And then there's the fee, which would be, at least 80 million plus the rest. And he's scored 150 goals in 150 games. So it's not as if it will have gone down.
So what you're saying is we're not getting him back?
No.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because if we did get him back, we'd be the best side in Europe again, probably.
Yes.
It's incredible, really, to think of the power of Ronaldo.
Then we could forget about all this worry about defensive systems, because we'd just say, look, United are going to score 5 goals every game. If someone scores 6, then they deserve to win.
Yeah. Absolutely. Don't mention teams scoring 6 against us, Ed. Never ideal. So Sir Alex went on holiday to New York in the international break to watch a bit of tennis and tap up Pep Guardiola for the replacing him job. That's about the size of it, right?
I somehow doubt it, but yes, of course, knowledge that Fergie was going to New York and everyone thought, who else is in New York? Guardiola's having a year out and is enjoying the nightlife of the West Village, I believe. So very nice part of New York, if for any of you New Yorkers. I suspect he just went over to hobnob it with some fellow Scots, and Andy Murray won the US Open and Sean Connery was there, and he just liked acting like royalty for a bit in New York, and fair play. Interesting, though, that he missed a couple of friendlies in Europe this season because, so the reports go, he's had a few health problems, had a couple of serious nosebleeds, and he's been advised not to do a lot of travelling if he doesn't need to, right? So United, obviously Champions League and stuff like that, he will travel. And it'd be interesting, this one, if we have a dead rubber at the end of the Champions League groups, whether he actually travels or not. But he made it over to New York and hung out with Murray for a few days.
If you were like a major international sportsman from Scotland and James Bond and Alex Ferguson came to your press conference, that's got to help, hasn't it? That's got to be like, this is awesome. Look at this, is Alex Ferguson and James Bond. Doesn't get too much better than that.
Yeah. I don't see any James Bonds coming from Croatia or Serbia or wherever Djokovic is from. Oops, sorry.
That's outrageous. You have literally just started a war, Ed. Okay, let's move on to the serious matter of Twitter questions. At Tom Patterson asking, which 4 members of the Manchester United squad would you take with you onto Richard O'Brien's Crystal Maze? That is a really good question. I think first of all, you've got to have Scholesy because of his vision. He's got that rotating head on a stick, and that's it's a really important quality on the Crystal Maze. And you need good decision making, and you need a few leadership skills. So I think maybe you take the boy Giggsy because he's not really doing it on the pitch anymore, but I think you'd want him in the Crystal Maze dressing room for sure. You definitely wouldn't take Rooney. You might take Welbeck just because, as you said earlier, Ed, he makes things happen. And then I think for me 4th member, I'd have to take Rio just for a bit of marshalling. He could marshal the team. So Giggs, Scholes, Welbeck and Rio. That's my 4.
And you've lost half the audience who have no idea what you're talking about. Yes, very good, very good. Odd 1980s and onwards game show. But yeah, there you go.
Who would be on your Crystal Maze 4, Ed?
No idea, and really don't care either. What I would like to know is what Tom's smoking these days.
Listen, that is an entirely valid question because you also got to think who's going to be best at getting gold tickets and not silver tickets.
Well, I mean, if it's a supermarket sweep type thing, it'd be Anderson that won. Let's go through every game show, shall we?
Yeah, let's.
Let's not.
Who would you have from United on your Blockbusters team, 1 versus 2? That's what I want to know.
Oh dear.
At Mark Mister says, at the England match, there was a man with a Shrek Wazza teddy. If you had to make a Manchester United player into a stuffed toy, who would it be?
Yeah, that was bizarre, that. He was kind of cuddling it as well, just for comfort.
Yeah, well, you need some sort of comfort when you're sitting and watching England, don't you?
Well, I mean, have to be Anderson. He's a big cuddly bear, isn't he?
He is, but I think a David De Gea teddy bear would be pretty awesome. Like big furry beard. Lovely.
Anderson's Instagram, interesting. A series of pictures about food, as you'd expect. He Instagrammed a picture of a fancy dinner out in Dubai or wherever he was. And he said, £1,000 this, SHIT, I go McDonald's. I was like, awesome.
And then I think he did then Instagram a picture of McDonald's afterwards. Maybe not, though. The boy, he likes his grub, doesn't he? I can't speak about that sort of thing. He's got a problem, I think, for a professional footballer. This is completely apropos of nothing, but a question like this will never be ignored by me. At Brandon Ulrich 2, just ask the simple question, talk more about Cantona, memories, whatever. Just more King Eric will make anything better. So he then goes on to ask what's your the favourite Cantona performance you ever saw in person, and what did it mean to you, Ed?
Oh my God, there are so many. So I've seen most of Eric's performances in person, I think. A time of my life where I saw way too much football.
That was I'm going to forego an academic education for a bit and just travel around the country following United around.
So, I mean, many, the game in which he won it for United against Arsenal, scored from some distance. His debut against Leeds, was it his debut? No, certainly one of his early games away at Leeds, where there were 10,000 of us in the Leeds end, raining down aeroplanes aeroplanes, which was rather tasteless of us, onto the Leeds fans, and just to make fun of their aeroplane signs, I think.
They were paper aeroplanes from the back of Red Issue, which had Eric's face and thank you written on them.
Totally random, this one, because of course there's no Eric connection this week. We haven't seen Eric around for a while, have we?
There's one really important Eric connection this week, which is that my favourite poet in the whole world, I didn't used to have a favourite poet, but I have now, at Akwanga on Twitter, Musa Akwanga, big United fan, wrote a poem for 7 Cantonars called Cantona's Collar, which is easily, without question, the best poem about Eric Cantona's collar you're ever going to read. Literally brought tears to my eyes, so you've got to go and check that out, folks. My favourite Cantona memory, I talk about this from time to time. I wasn't even watching the match on TV. That's how weird it is that this is particularly my favourite one. But I was in the house I lived as a student, my first year at university. We were playing QPR. We were 1-0 down with something like 2 minutes left. And this was when we were like tightly running neck and neck with Arsenal to try and win the league. And I just was like, do you know what? It's all right. It's fine. Cantona's going to score. And then that old final score ticker
Vidi printer
came through. Latest QPR 1, Manchester United 1, brackets Cantona. He just never let us down, apart from that time when he flying kicked a fan and was out for 9 months. Apart from that, he never let us down.
Don't need an excuse for a random Cantona section, I guess.
Never. Let's move on then to something a little more timely. 2 matches to come in the week ahead. Home tie against Wigan, which you'd think would be routine, apart from how we don't seem to have routine fixtures anymore.
Yeah, well, it's got to be routine, hasn't it? I mean, if we can't routinely beat Wigan at home because it's at Old Trafford, and we always beat Wigan at Old Trafford, then what can we do? So yes, I'm expecting a thoroughly good victory in which United shut up shop and defend. No, I mean actually defend properly this time and then score a few goals.
Yeah, that'd be nice. No earthly idea what the team lineup's going to be. There's lots of talk about Büttner getting a game, especially with Evra having played twice in a week, but then Büttner got himself a little injury.
Well, he played for reserves the other day, so yeah, apparently so, and Evra's fit and going and playing all right, so there's no reason to drop him just yet, I don't think, so I can't see that. Of course, this is the kind of game you might rotate, but so early in the season, I wouldn't have thought so, and given that the Galatasaray game that follows in midweek is at home as well, then I don't think there's a real incentive to make a lot of changes just yet. Of course, the week after is Liverpool, and that's a big one if for the rivalry and not the league table. There's that consideration, but given the 2 games coming up are both at home, I don't think Ferguson will be tempted to make too many changes.
He doesn't need a lot of temptation, though, to make a few changes. He does an awful lot of a little change or two, but there's a couple of enforced changes probably. I mean, I guess it would be surprising to see RVP start. Quite fancy a bit of Welbeck and Cheech up front together. Wouldn't mind seeing that. It's been a while.
Yeah, it depends on the Kagawa situation, doesn't it? And we might well see that if Kagawa isn't quite fit and they don't risk RVP. I don't like that acronym, Van Persie. He was RVP at Arsenal, he's Van Persie now. He deserves a bit more respect than that.
I think he's ORVP now, isn't he? That's the official line, because it's the O Robin van Persie.
Okay.
That's how the song goes.
Yes.
That's what I was going. Anyway, the Wigan and Galatasaray games, obviously there'll be changes between the two because there just always are. And this marks the start of our Champions League campaign, and it seems like an absolute lifetime ago since we last played a Champions League fixture. And we better hope we get 3 points in this one, because we really can't afford any of the complacency that not crept into, but ran smashing down doors and windows straight into the middle of our campaign last time round.
Right, well, Ferguson's promised to play his strongest team, so let's find out whether he really does that one with Liverpool coming up afterwards. And yeah, totally right, can't afford any complacency, really needs to get the campaign off to the strongest possible start. Galatasaray away from Galatasaray, I mean, they are the Turkish champions, so they have a good team at the moment, but if United don't win this one at Old Trafford, it's a serious problem. Not that it's a particularly tough group.
Well, no, but I mean, that really isn't the issue, is it? Because we had the easiest group we've had for a very long time last go round, and managed to chuck that up the Swanee, didn't we? So, and our squad is still not exactly incredibly deep, right? And we are riven with injury problems at this stage of the season already. So, there's definitely a few issues, and it's not going to be a formality to qualify from this group, is there?
No, totally right. And given that Ferguson made a hugely strategic error with his European squad and left out Bebe, you've got to wonder about whether United can do it this year now.
Talking of Bebe, it's time for here at the Rantcast for us to give away another shirt. I don't know what it is.
It's like a shirt a week at the moment, isn't it?
I've never owned a United shirt. Like, literally, I've never owned a United shirt in my life. Kind of sad about, really, because I would quite like laces with Cantona 7 on the back, you know, but I would like to have owned one of them.
I have owned many, but I have not bought one since 1999. Fact. You just kind of grow out of it, don't you? Maybe not. Maybe I did.
Well, I mean, in the last 5 years, it's taken a whole different complexion, doesn't it?
Right.
And, also, for me, it's like not immaterial that there's a name of a blinking insurance company on the front of that thing, because like advertising Sharp I never really felt that bad about. It's like they're an alright company. They make, I don't know, calculators and stuff, that's fine. And there's that brilliant picture from the 80s, that team photo of us all standing there with Sharp electronics on the shirts and microwaves on the pitch in front of us. But I really do not want to walk around advertising Aon, who are a really bad company,
Allegedly, before we get sued the hell out of us by a massive evil global corporation.
I'm standing by the idea that there are no ethical insurance companies in the world. Insurance is a terrible industry designed to kind of slowly steal from as many people as possible. Like, it's steal a tiny bit off everyone because it's like maths, right? And that's...
Well, at least it's fair. It's, it's socialist capitalism, they are spreading the evil around. And anyway, fair enough. So
also the gingham, right? I don't know what it is. Like, I am the flame to the moth that is gingham. Shirts just keep arriving through my front door. That's 2 in the space of a month. This one had Scholes 22 on the back of it. It comes in XL. It's a home kit, unfortunately. But if you want a Scholesy 22 home kit, this one is not a knockoff either, by the way. This is not Hong Kong's finest Bebe 7 shirt. It's an actual factual Man United shirt.
Can I interject, please? Can I? Not Hong Kong, Thailand. and Scholes 22 is all wrong. It's all wrong. It's factually and morally wrong. So we'll give you permission if whoever wins this shirt to get a biro out and write an 8 and a 1 on there.
I don't mind. I kind of have this affection for Scholes 22. There's something about it represents this like last phase in his career. He's become this really different figure, and I don't know. I don't mind it. The Scholes 22. I don't have the negative feelings towards that number particularly.
If you add the 18 and the 22 together, you get the number of years Scholes has actually been playing for United.
Exactly. That is exactly right. 22 is like the number of league titles he's won, right?
Amazing. It's like something out of the Da Vinci Code.
It is. Yeah, it really is exactly like something out of the Da Vinci Code. So if you want to win this, what you need to do is you need to use the hashtag Rantcast, and you do have to use that for your entry to be valid, not because I'm obnoxiously trying to promote the podcast, just because I can't find it in my mentions a week later, but I can find it with the hashtag. So please use the hashtag Rantcast, and just obviously the gingham shirt is not fit for humans to wear. We all know that's the case. What is the most creative use you can come up with for a gingham shirt in 140 characters? And I just say now, picnic blankets, tablecloths, and what's the other one? Tea towels.
Tea cozies, yeah. They're not going to win.
Shame you said you knocked out tea cozies, because I might have considered tea cozies. But tea towel, picnic blanket.
All right, looks like I'm in the running for this shirt then.
Do you want it?
What about kilts?
Yeah, kilts. Stop taking listeners' potential ideas, Ed. So yeah, use
sporrans.
Use the hashtag Rantcast to just send the word sporran at me, and you'll definitely win the shirt. No, you won't. But it randomly, me and Ed will just decide which one makes us laugh the most this time next week when we record the podcast. So get your entries in by midnight Tuesday BST next week.
Very good. Good luck to whoever wins, and we'd like to see a picture of you in this Scholes shirt.
International competition, Rio Ferdinand style. And with that rambling on and on and on, we come to the end of this week's podcast, but we're not going without a prediction. Ed, what are the results going to be against Wigan and Galatasaray?
I have a feeling. I don't know why. I think United are going to kill it this week. So I'm going for United 5, Wigan 0.
Oh, God.
And United 3, Galatasaray 1.
Right. Okay, everyone. Don't put United winning on your accumulators this week. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win against Wigan and a horrible, untidy 2-1 nicking a win in the last moments against Galatasaray.
Very good. Or not. I like my predictions more than yours.
I like yours more than mine.
You're just so negative. That's your problem.
Yeah, that's right, isn't it? Talking of negativity, the internet is where you can find me and Ed. You can find me on Twitter at UTD Rantcast. You can find Ed at United Rant. We really love it when people write nice reviews of us on iTunes. And should you feel so inclined to help cover the postage of the International Skulls competition, you can, and also like bandwidth and equipment and the things we actually spend money on for the show, you can hit us up at unitedrant.co.uk/donate. And also like United Rant on Facebook.
Some people do.
Apparently so. And with that, we'll be back this time next week.
Looking forward to it. See you then.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.